my job is draining the life out of me. And I keep looking at like my digital clock and see it tick away. And then I do the math and think about, I got to do this at least still 30 years of my life until I can go with pension. And if this opening hits you, I'd appreciate if you can click the subscribe button. So going into like the entire thing, I think for me is, and obviously I'm somewhat complaining, thinking about doing the same thing over and over again. But it's mainly the mental restraint, I think, if I can be so blunt with all of you. It's also the cycle, Monday to Friday, and it's like the rinse and repeat. It's an endless cycle of the same thing over and over again. And sure, you can, like learn something new, get a promotion, but it's the cycle of the time that keeps the same, or, and you literally see weeks fly by, like literally. And you think to yourself, Sunday, oh no, I gotta start working again on Monday, right? And then it's Tuesday and Wednesday, and then after Wednesday, it's like it goes really fast. And you're like, yeah, it's Friday, but then Friday you're like beat up, you're tired, so you go to sleep early, and then you got like a day or so left, or like, like you wake up a little bit later, I assume, at least I do. Not too much, but like instead of waking up at 6:30, I will wake up at like 8 or 9. So the day feels already a bit shorter because you wake up later. And then it's Sunday and it's like, oh shit, it's rinse and repeat again. And Sunday kind of feels like a day where you want to do things, but you can't do things, because you're like, oh, I gotta, like prepare for Monday. And it gives you like this sort of extra, like, how do I say this? Like this sort of like, your mind is already at Monday, right? Instead of just enjoying the day of like thinking, oh, like I got Sundays off, right? And so like, don't think that I'm like broke or something. Like I can pay the bills, I can buy whatever I want practically. I mean, to some extent. So this isn't a video about like not having money. It's about what I'm trading for it. How can I do things without money? You can't. So like we're like in this ecosystem, of course, that, I mean, my dad and like my dad's dad, my grandpa, like we were all, and before that, obviously, it's like we're like all in the same ecosystem that we have to do this. Otherwise, you're going to live under a bridge for the rest of your life. And that's something we don't want, because when we want to live comfortable, when it be warm in the winter and cold in the summer, and we want to have airco, want to have a decent car, etc. So like I say, it's this rhythm trap, I guess, is what we can call. Like if you don't do A, you can have B, C, D, E, or G. Like you can start a family, you can start this, but it's the mind-numbing cycle, and sure, you can switch jobs or something, get a better pay, which is nice, but the 8 till 5, because I know a lot of people say 9 to 5, but I work from 8 till 5. So 8 a.m. till 5 p.m. from Monday to Friday. And, it's like once you have everything going on in your life, you get like your own house or apartment or whatever, you can't stop, because if you stop, you can't pay the bills and you get evicted. So, it's this constant cycle of like, the show must go on, as people say. And the show must go on until I'm 67 now, I guess. So I can go with pension, and then hoping that the pension is good, because nowadays they're also like shortening in that. So it's like, even when you have, because I saw this with my uncle, by the way, like at the moment he went with pension, he wasn't able to afford to live because of how much it shortened him up. So he had another part-time job. He was like driving a car, and he would like bring medicine, like through the village, city, whatever, like through whatever. And he would like deliver them to the patients. Then we would get like what, $300-400, maybe $500 extra a month, so he could like pay his bills. But for me, it's kind of like at the moment you go with pension, you should be able to enjoy life until death, right? Whether that's 10 years or 20 years, I think anybody deserves that when you go to pension. But I think it's a real trap. And I always try to think like there must be like a more modern way, instead of like digital digitalizing everything. There should be another way of like being able, instead of like working 40 hours a week, you should be able to work 24 hours, but then those other 2 days, it should be filled up with, I don't know, something. I mean, you're a robot, but that's like way advanced into the future, maybe 10, 15 years or something, but something that can, and the reason why I'm saying that is because when you're in your prime or you're young, you want to live, right? You want to see the world, you want to do things when you're still capable. But at the time we're 67, I might be in a wheelchair or I might not be able to walk, the distances that I can now. So you want to do all of those things when you're young, right? When you're like in your prime, you're able to do all the things you want to do. Oh, you want to do mountain climb? Oh, I can do that because I'm still young. I'm not saying you can't do that when you're 60 or 70, but it's getting more difficult to do that. And on top of all that, like when I went to school, I had shit tons of vacations. I had like autumn vacation, summer vacation. I had quarter one out of vacation. What was that called? I don't remember. But you have like a lot of vacations throughout the year. And at the moment you start working, you don't have that. The only thing you have like 2 or 3 weeks, mostly 2 weeks of summer vacation, and that's that. Then it's over. So you work 40 hours a week and you get 2 weeks off, which I don't think is a lot in comparison. I'm not going to say it have to be like, I mean, there are people who work like teachers or something. They have the same vacations as the kids, and that's amazing for them. But like for everybody else, I don't think 2 weeks is enough to even recover. If you have like a lot of stress going on in your work life or maybe your life itself, and you need the vacation. I think maybe that's also one of the reasons why a lot of people go depressed and stuff, because they cannot fuel their battery enough in those 2 weeks. Some people really need a month off. And I think every working human being kind of deserves to have at least a month off over the entire year. So we have 12 months in a year. So that means 11 months you will work hard and you will do everything. And then 1 month you can do whatever you want to do. I think to me that would be a really great, thing that would be a really nice compromise for most people. I think personally. It's a system that we live in that I think that really needs to change. And I know, like, when I look back at life, like when I look at like my parents, for instance, how easy they could have bought or built a house compared to now. When they started working, they were able to buy a house within 4 years. Compared to now, I have to work probably 10 years. Plus, I need to have like cash in hand. So if I want to buy, let's say, a 400K house, you need to have 40K cash, that you have to like put down. And then they're going to check everything. Or like, do you have like 2 income or like a double income? Or do you have like 1 income? Or how do you make money? Like, is it enough? Is it not enough? Are you going to get in trouble? It's like this entire thing behind it. Plus, you also have to pay the realtor and 4 or 5% or something from that, from the house cost. So like when you buy the house for 400K, you have to pay 5% to the realtor, and then you have to also, like I said, put down 40,000 because it's 10% of the price of the house. They didn't have that in the early days. So sometimes I say to myself, I wish I lived in the 70s and 80s. And I'm not going to say that I hate life now, because everything is modernized. Like I could do this, YouTube, I can do many things that I want to do, like game, watch stuff, everything is like I could pop up a movie or TV show anytime I want, right? So like a lot of things have been made more accessible, but there are things like say with houses and other stuff, they were cheaper, they were better, or also the mentality of people was different. Life was, not saying life was easier in the sense of like, coping with certain things like paying for stuff, but it's like the people were more easier to deal with, right? And it doesn't weigh in on what I'm saying now, but yeah, that's just kind of how I feel about this, It's an endless loop. And then when you're finally, or at the time that you have pension, you think that you're going to have more freedom, yet it's going to get only worse than that. You'll get more stress because of how little pension you get. It's crazy how you can work 40 years for the same boss, like my dad, for instance. And now he's going to go with pension next year. And he told me how much he had to, how much he will lose. I believe it's more than $1,000 a month that he will lose for no longer working, but for going with pension. And I think that's insane. Like, you work your entire life for that, and then at the moment you're with pension, you're going to drop thousands. It's insane. And then you need to figure out how to pay the bills, you know. And I think to myself, it should be the other way around. You should have it a bit more difficult during work, but then you're working so you can pay everything, and then you can save money. And then at the moment you're with pension, everything should be more relaxing. You should be able to exhale. You should be able to be like, I worked my entire life, and now I'm old, but at least I can enjoy everything until the day that I'm no longer here. But apparently, with the system that we live in, the ecosystem, the economy is like, no, at the moment you go with pension, we're going to make it even worse for you. And I think that's really, really shitty. So I'm not quitting my job or anything like that. So I'm not doing anything dramatic. I just, I just refuse to pretend that this is normal. And I want to know from you, and being completely frank with me in the comment section, are you looking forward to your pension? Like, are you able to save up enough money monthly that the moment you go with pension, you're going to live comfortable? Or do you think, because of how everything is going on in the world right now, with everything is getting more and more expensive, that you think, because I've been thinking about this too, but my question to you is like, do you think you have to work until the day that you're no longer here? Because I think to myself, eventually they're going to completely remove the pension, and I have to work until I'm like 80 or 85, and then I die. Because I have a feeling that that's the direction or the lane that we're going to go into, because I think we are bored and we do a study and then we have to work, and I think we're just workhorses, and that's all we are. Those who are rich can live the best life, and those who don't have that, or have a mid income or low income, they have to work until the day they die. They don't have any right anymore pension. That's what I think we're going towards. But what is your opinion? Let me know, and appreciate you for watching this video.